right. Welcome back to Hang Up and Hang Out, where all of these videos are for helping us to reclaim our attention and focus to lead a life of true fulfillment and true purpose and true alignment. So, the topic for today is how constantly consuming is keeping us stuck in the same habits, patterns, and loops that ultimately control our lives and keep us from becoming the highest version of ourselves. And this is going to be different for everybody, but I just want to lay the bed and give you an analogy you may not have heard before that could open your eyes to, wow, maybe I haven't been reflecting on my patterns and my habits in a productive way that would allow me to uncover them, to understand what I can do better, how I can respond better in the future. Because when we constantly consume and constantly have noise in our head, we never let the dust settle enough to go inside and say, well, how could I have responded to this better? What led to me doing that bad habit? What led to me lashing out at that person? When we stay constantly consuming and distracting ourselves, we stay on the judgmental side of things and just kind of default point the finger and say, well, they were rude, so I did this, or this keeps happening. We stay reactive. And I think anybody who's watching this video, you're smart enough to understand that you cannot control other people. You can control how you respond. So therefore, we need some time to rest and digest on how we're spending our time, our energy, our attention, so we can understand how we can respond better. Because it's never going to be about curating this perfect life of, well, all my coworkers are going to be super nice. There's never going to be traffic. There's never going to be this. I'm never going to be tempted with habits that I'm trying to get away from. All of that's going to happen. All that matters is how we control our internal state to respond. So all I want to do today is shine some light on how never giving yourself a chance to rest and digest on whatever it is, your week, your day, your month, how if you constantly consume and distract and just try to forget about those situations, that's how the loops repeat. If we don't give ourselves an opportunity to see it from a different angle, from a non-judgmental angle, from an observation angle, it'll continue to repeat itself, because what you cannot see, you cannot change. And if we stay on the judgmental side of things, reactive, never thinking it's our fault, we stay stuck. It'll continue to repeat over and over and over. And in my life, I've noticed that constantly consuming was the easiest way to avoid this type of reflection, because it's the same thing as, like, if we ate all day, our body would never have time to rest and digest and use that food as fuel for our body. The same way, if we constantly are consuming what's here, we can never turn it into like anything. And what we consume in our daily lives, if we don't give ourselves a chance to rest and reflect on that and say, how could I have responded differently? It never turns into wisdom to use for next time. We just continue to loop over and over and over. So the analogy that I think can be applied and is a really good real world example is, think about any athletes here, any high achievers. Think about what an athlete at the highest level does after a game. Let's say a quarterback playing in the NFL. If they throw 2 interceptions in a game, would they just go to the locker room on Sunday and say, well, fuck, I threw 2 interceptions. That sucks. Like, hope I can try better next time. And now I'm just going to try to forget about it. No. They go watch film to understand why they threw the interceptions. Did they look the wrong way? Could they have responded differently to the coverage? Whatever it is, that's a very plain and simple example of people performing at the highest level. when they make mistakes and they repeat a loop or a pattern or a bad habit, they don't just sit there for 10 minutes and go, "Well, shit, that kind of sucked. Like, I hope that doesn't happen again." No. They look at the film, they observe it from an angle of curiosity of, I wonder how I could have done this differently. Like, that's the best part about like actually watching film from sports, is you're literally observing it from like a third person angle, which is what we can do when we actually give ourselves time to rest and reflect on the week. Like, if you journal on a Sunday after a long ass week, you're observing that from a different angle. Like, you're not in it anymore. You're able to look at it from the outside and go, huh, maybe I could have responded differently. What happened right before I chose to do this bad habit that I always do, and it's keeping me stuck, and I know it's keeping me stuck, but I just can't understand why I can't shake it? What happened right before? What happened after? Who was I with? What kind of stirred it up inside of me? If we never give ourselves a chance to ask those kinds of questions and observe from the curiosity angle and the third person almost, those loops are going to repeat over and over and over. So let's go back to the quarterback thing. If so-and-so throws 2 interceptions week 1 and then just goes, fuck, that sucked, hope I don't do that again, and then a week later throws 3 interceptions for the same reason and says again, oh, that's terrible, like, I hope it doesn't happen again, and then he keeps doing it, he's not going to be the starting quarterback by week 3, right? But if week 1 he says, I'm going to go watch film to understand how I can respond differently to that mistake so it doesn't happen next week, and then I can progress. Not saying that there's not going to be a mistake the week after, but how can we rest and reflect on the mistakes we made here so they don't happen again? Because as soon as you can identify it and understand, and just out of curiosity be like, why did I do that? Like, why did I lash out on that person? Or why do I always do this after this? If we just put in the headphones, turn on the Netflix the entire rest of our time, those moments never happen, and then we wonder why we're stuck in loops for years, and why we never see the sales we want to see, why we never see the relationship we want to see, why we never see this. When's the time to rest and digest the information, to observe and actually say, well, I could have responded differently. Maybe I could have spent a little more time here, more attention here, and maybe there could be a different outcome. It's like the film analogy is just, it makes so much sense, because if we're not watching film on our lives, essentially, on where am I spending my time, where am I spending my energy, where am I spending my attention, the same things are just going to repeat over and over again, and then we wonder why. It's like, what? We never have a chance to rest and digest. And I hope that analogy helps somebody. And I look at it like, yesterday was a Saturday. I drove 2 hours from Orlando to Tampa to come see my mom. And I spent those 2 hours driving in silence. I didn't listen to anything because this was a long week. I'm working somewhere now. I'm building this community, still very intentional with my relationships, making new friends, being, doing all these things. Like, it was a long week. And I saw that as an opportunity to reflect and, out of curiosity, see how I could improve for next time, and say, where was my time really spent this week? Where was my energy really this week? Where was my attention really this week? Not where I thought it went. Like, where did it really go? Let's be honest. Let's not judge, but let's be honest. And through that, I worked through it for 2 hours and got to a really good place of like, oh yeah, I saw how that went. that I can definitely respond better to that situation so that it doesn't hurt me next time. What you can see, you can change. But let's say, I had a long ass week, a lot happened, and I go for that drive and I just crank up a podcast about some random shit. And then, boom, the rest of the day happens. Go out for dinner with mom, talk all night. The next day, now I'm going to go to the beach, do this, do that. And then, boom, before you know it, it's Monday again. Where was the time to actually rest and reflect on how the week went and say, could I have responded to that differently? What habits are still coming up that I know are holding me back from my highest potential, the best version of myself? Where's the time to say I could definitely respond to that better? Where does that time happen? If all the silence is filled with noise from the phone and anything else, TV in general, consuming, if all the silence is filled with that, we're just going to repeat. It's going to be on repeat. Week in, week out, we're going to repeat the same loops over and over and over. So I encourage you to, probably by this point in the video, you have that thing that keeps coming up, your A+ problem of the thing that keeps coming up in your life. Take today, or take 30 minutes, take 2 hours, take 10 hours, doesn't matter, whatever works for you, and finally give yourself a chance to rest and digest on the week and say, observe it from a new angle. Just like the quarterback watches film, he doesn't watch it from the field. They watch it from up above. It's like when we give ourselves a chance to observe differently now that we're done with the week, when we give ourselves a chance to observe differently, that's when we can identify, well, this happened before, so then I felt there was no choice, so I had to do that, and that's what led to the bad habit that I'm trying to get rid of. And if we never lower the volume, that observation can never happen. So take today, whether it's journaling, going for a walk, whatever works for you, and say, I'm going to show up to this with curiosity. I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to show up and see it from a new perspective so it doesn't hurt me next time. And when you do that, you can finally see something for what it is, and then it doesn't have the power of you anymore. What you can see, you can change. And as soon as you can identify the pattern and go, oh, this always happens because I always see this person, and it makes me feel some type of way. And yeah, then I just always give into this pattern or this habit or this way of thinking, and it's keeping me stuck, and I don't like it. But when we can identify it, we can choose to respond differently because we can see it coming. So just like the quarterback would never, sometimes you gotta watch a little film on your life and see it from a new perspective so you can respond differently and not keep throwing interceptions and not get cut from the team. So I encourage you to just show up with an open mind and an open heart and take a little time away from the noise and give yourself and your life some attention that you may have been neglecting so you can show up better, so you can respond better for the people you love and what you truly care about. Because especially when we're distracted by devices and consuming, we tend to give our time, energy, and attention to things that we don't even really care about. And when we can finally reflect on where that's going and how it's leading us to these same patterns, we can finally say, well, yeah, I really don't want it going there. So how can I respond differently so that it doesn't happen again? And then before you know it, new ways of thinking, new ways of feeling, new patterns, new life, new reality. So I just encourage you today to show up, and I'm sure you guys all have that A+ problem, that thing, that habit, that pattern, that loop that you continuously, it keeps happening. And you keep wondering why. You're like, fuck, why does this keep happening? And I encourage you to show up to that with curiosity, and whether you're writing about it, walking about it, driving in silence about it, showing up with curiosity and choosing to see it from a new perspective, just like the football player watches film from a camera, and it's the new perspective from third person. And when we can do this, we can finally identify well, maybe I could have responded that way. What happened right before? Or why was I feeling that way? And just continue to ask ourselves why. Because when we stay connected on these devices constantly and there's constant noise, we never lower the volume enough to ask ourselves why. Like, why did this happen on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? Why did I keep going back to that? So it's worth a shot to show up with curiosity and ask yourself why. So, and once we can identify this, once you can see it, you can change it. And when we can identify it, it no longer has the power over us, and we can choose to respond differently next time, because there will be a next time. We can't control the external world. We can control our internal. So this is just what I've noticed from years of being in habits and patterns and loops and constantly avoiding them with more consuming on the phone of social media, TV, whatever it is, and always wondering why these patterns keep coming up. It's because I never asked myself why. I never chose to see it from a curious lens, and they just keep happening. So I encourage you to show up with an open mind and an open heart to ask yourself why. And yeah, we all have that A+ problem that we can start there, and you'll notice a lot from showing up with this new perspective. So it's worth watching a little film on your life and seeing how you can respond differently next time. As always, hang up and hang out.